Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Paola Barona. Welcome to the Transgender Leadership Initiative Request for Proposals Overview. I am a Senior Program Manager here at AIDS United. I'd first like to take a moment to ask that everyone please mute your computers and dial in on your phones to the number that's on your screen there for the audio portion of this webinar. If you have any questions or technical issues, please use the Q&A that's on the screen. Again, my name is Paola Barona. I want to thank you for your interest in transgender leadership development and for taking the time to participate in this virtual meeting that will give you an overview of the application process to participate in AIDS United's Transgender Leadership Initiative. The Transgender Leadership Initiative is made possible because of the generosity of Janssen Pharmaceuticals, currently our sole funder for this important work. We appreciate their generosity for allowing us to offer you this opportunity. At this point, I'd like to introduce Shannon Weiss, the Program Manager overseeing this initiative. They have recently rejoined the team here at AIDS United, and I'm excited to have them on this team. They'll be leading this webinar and will be able to help you with all aspects of the application process, which for the first time at AIDS United includes a video phone option for presenting a proposal. Thanks again for your interest in transgender leadership development, and without further ado, I pass the mic to Shannon.
Thanks, Paola. So as Paola said, I'm Shannon Weiss, and I'm the Program Manager for the Transgender Leadership Initiative here at AIDS United. My goal at this point is to help you through the application process in whatever way I can to make it as painless as is possible for a grant application to be. I'm really excited about this initiative. It's really potentially groundbreaking, both for the field and for your organizations, and I hope you all are excited as well. So this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website. So this will allow you to refer to it in the future if you need to go back and hear something that you missed maybe the first time, and this will also allow others who might not be on the call to refer to it if they have questions that they would like answered. As Paola said, please do mute your lines so we get the best recording quality possible. And we'll be able to, we would invite you to unmute your phones during the Q&A portion if you have a question for us. And Paola also pointed out the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen that you can use to submit questions to us throughout the course of the webinar. And yeah, so we are just going to go right along and get started here. So here is our next slide. So our agenda. During today's webinar, we're going to do a brief overview of AIDS United as a whole and then the Transgender Leadership Initiative in particular. We'll also cover who's eligible to apply and the requirements for the grant. And we'll also highlight key areas of importance in the RFP. We'll briefly discuss the technical assistance opportunities, and then we'll cover the rest of the required attachments for the proposal. After that, we'll go over the steps that need to be taken to apply either through Foundation Connect or a phone video call. Then we'll review the application timeline and grant year, and then finally we'll have time for Q&A. As we're going through things, please do jot down your questions and hold on to them, or go ahead and type them into the Q&A box as they occur to you. If we do run out of time for questions, we'll type up responses to everything in the Q&A box that we didn't get to, and we'll share that document with you all online. So if you're not sure whether to submit a question via the Q&A box or to send it to, or to wait and hold on to it, to send it to us, auditorily during the Q&A portion, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, just so that it's recorded there, and if we run out of time, we'll get to it. So AIDS United's mission is to end the AIDS epidemic in the United States. We do this through strategic grant making, capacity building, policy advocacy, technical assistance, and formative research. The Transgender Leadership Initiative is one among many grant-making capacity initiatives we have here. We also have a skilled team of policy experts that help inform and advocate for policy at the national and state levels that helps people with HIV and those most impacted by it. The Transgender Leadership Initiative itself is a response to how deeply the trans community is impacted by HIV and the unique challenges that trans folks face in accessing HIV care. More effort really has to be undertaken to recognize the reality of trans lives and to enable trans individuals to take up leadership roles to address their community's needs. So the Transgender Leadership Initiative aims to support the ability of trans leaders to improve HIV service delivery, increase trans leadership presence in policy arenas, and to create a cohort of connected trans leaders. So eligibility grant requirements, just to get into some of the nuts and bolts. Each organization is allowed to submit one application. Applicants must be a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 organization per the guidelines set forth by the IRS. We will verify tax-exempt status before awarding any grants. If you do not have a 501c3, you may apply through a fiscal sponsor that is a 501c3 organization. Applicants should be viable with or without this grant. So these funds aren't intended to help start a new organization, and they're not intended to serve as replacement for discontinued funding. Organizations may apply for up to $20,000. The anticipated average grant will be $15,000, and we hope to award 5 grants. The actual grant amount that you receive, if you receive a grant, may be different from what you requested on your application, and that depends on the decision and the discussion of the grant review committee. And I'll talk about the review committee in a little bit. The overall grant amount we intend to grant out is $100,000. So organizations that are current or past recipients of any AIDS United funded initiatives may apply for funding through this RFP. So having received AIDS United funding in the past does not mean you are ineligible for this initiative. Applicants must be able to utilize the grant funds within a 6 to 8 month period beginning August 1st, 2017. And I want to highlight this is the one change we have made to the RFP since original distribution. When we sent the RFP out, we allowed 12-month grant project periods, although we encouraged 6 to 8 month ones, and we've now removed the 12-month grant period option. So you must be able to use all the grant funds and have your project finished within 6 to 8 months. There's one final report for the grant that will be 30 days after the end of each grantee's project period. The absolute final deadline for that report is April 30th, 2018. But if you have a project that ends December 31st, 2017, you don't actually have until April to submit your report. Your report will be due on January 31st. And it's unusual for me to be able to say that there is no interim reporting requirement for this grant. So you will only have one grant to submit to us during the course of the grant period. There will be a cohort-wide grantee convening that will take place in DC in November. We'll ask each organization to send one individual, probably a project lead or the organization's leader. The person will be required to attend. AIDS United will cover all of the costs associated with that meeting, including airfare, lodging, food, and most of your expenses, minus maybe a dinner or two that you might need to get on your own. Maybe one dinner because it's a short convening. In any case, details will be forthcoming if you're a grant recipient. For this RFP, we're very intentional with respect to the overarching areas of focus. As such, applicants must exhibit a commitment to 2 things: to addressing HIV as a racial and social justice issue, and to practicing meaningful involvement of trans people living with HIV/AIDS, which we're going to talk more about shortly. Also important to AIDS United, but not required by this initiative, is for grantees to apply an intersectional approach when developing and implementing strategies. Now, what intersectionality is a framework for understanding how interrelated systems of oppression support discrimination among people who share overlapping social identities. Now, what exactly does that mean? That means, for example, that a person living with HIV may face racism and transphobia in addition to the stigma around having HIV. So all of those things must be addressed if we're to see an end to HIV in the U.S. You can't just address HIV in isolation. Now, for this initiative, you are not required to include intersectionality in your application or in your approach, but we do strongly encourage applicants to start thinking intersectionally in your work if you're not already doing that. So I just mentioned meaningful involvement of people living with HIV/AIDS, otherwise known as NEPA. NEPA recognizes the important contributions that people living with HIV can make in response to HIV. It stems from the concept of greater involvement of people with HIV/AIDS, or GIPA, and GIPA is meaningfully involving folks with HIV in programmatic policy and funding decisions and actions that impact their lives by ensuring that they participate in important decisions. So NEPA affirms that people living with HIV must be involved in decision-making at all levels, their own health, and how organizations serve them, and how their communities and nations respond. So the definition of NEPA you see up on your screen comes from the U.S. People Living with HIV Caucus presentation on NEPA, and if you'd like to take a look at their HIV Caucus white paper on NEPA, the website is hivcaucus.org. So the Trans Leadership Initiative strives to increase leadership among trans individuals and to increase the transgender leadership capacity of organizations. So TLI, or the Transgender Leadership Initiative, will mirror NEPA principles with the expectation that transgender individuals must be involved in decision-making at all levels of this project. If there are any questions about what that might mean, we can talk about that a little later. So technical assistance, or TA, is another important component of the Transgender Leadership Initiative. It's a collaboration between grantees, AIDS United, and the technical assistance team. So each applicant may request TA as part of their application. The review committee may also recommend TA for a particular organization, and grant funds may be contingent upon acceptance of TA. Examples of technical assistance include things like leadership development, organizational development, or meaningful involvement of people with HIV/AIDS and or trans folks. TA may be administered via a number of methods, including in-person meetings, webinars, and conference calls. There will be a call between grantees and the entire technical assistance team, which will be listed on the little mini calendar that's going to be toward the end of this presentation. Applicants can make a TA request in their application, but you don't need to limit it to the areas I've mentioned. Those were just examples. You can request TA around any areas related to the project you're proposing. The learning cohort is another unique and interesting part of this initiative. So grantees will network with each other and support each other through regular calls and our convening in DC. There's also the possibility of individual coaching between grantees. It will all depend upon who the grantees end up being and their particular needs and their particular project focuses. This will be a venue through which grantee recipients will support each other. And then also very exciting, the grantees among the learning cohort will elect one member to be a representative on AU's Public Policy Committee. So the Public Policy Committee is the body at AIDS United, all consultants and representatives from other organizations who help shape AIDS United's policy priorities throughout the course of the year. So the membership from the Transgender Leadership Initiative grantee who will be on there will allow AIDS United to better include the needs of trans community and HIV and our HIV advocacy priorities, and it will give that representative the ability to help shape AIDS United's national policy agenda. And I do want to emphasize that the policy work that we do springs from the Public Policy Committee. So folks on the Public Policy Committee really have a huge influence on what our policy and advocacy department does here at AIDS United. So in this particular initiative, a priority will be given to applicants that can provide clear plans and demonstrated capacity to ensure leadership of people living with HIV and who are reflective of the communities impacted, especially trans folks. In this instance, that's a requirement, as well as reflective of any other particular demographics that you might be serving. Priority will be given to applicants that demonstrate the greatest relevance for this RFP, including at least 2 of the following things that I am going to read out to you. Clear description of the need for transgender leadership in their community-based organizations, planning bodies, and networks. Socioeconomic and health disparities experienced by the target population. Opportunity and timeliness for policy initiatives that will improve the local response to the needs of people who are transgender and living with HIV, or policy environment, including why the applicant is well positioned to play a critical role in this effort, the scale of impact that the investment can have on the local HIV response as it relates to the transgender community, and sustainability of the effort after this funding cycle. So priority will be given to applicants who can address at least 2 of those things. And finally, all applicants will be required to demonstrate clear capability to promote the advancement of trans leadership and are expected to have trans leaders reflective of the target communities engaged or ready to play a leadership role in implementation. So some application logistics to get even more nuts and boltsy. Please keep your responses to the equivalent of 5 single-spaced pages of 12-point font. So work on your application in Microsoft Word or an equivalent program so you can keep track of how much you've been writing. Be clear and thorough in your responses. Anticipate any questions the review committee might have about your application. This isn't the kind of situation where you get to sit in the room with the review committee or on the phone with the review committee and answer any questions they might have. So don't assume that they know you or your organization and the work that you do. So please be as detailed as possible within the page limit about what exactly you do and you intend to do and any details you think they might have. You can apply, as we mentioned, through Foundation Connect or a phone video conference. Completed application materials are due 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time on June 14th. And that is a hard and fast deadline, and materials come in time-stamped through our online system. So we'll be able to know if you submitted late. Incomplete applications will not be reviewed. So if we take a look at your application in Foundation Connect and we see that it has materials missing, we will not review it further. So don't let yourself don't let that happen to you. So there's a shorter list than we usually have for this initiative for attachments. We need your organization's board of directors list with their professional or community affiliations. If you don't have your own 501c3, you'll need to submit a signed letter of agreement with your fiscal sponsor, and we will then be checking your fiscal sponsor's 501c3 status if we decide to give you a grant. The diversity table that's referenced in the RFP can be downloaded from Foundation Connect. If you don't have access to Foundation Connect, you can drop me an email. My email address is going to show up several times later in this presentation, just in case you haven't already received emails from me. So you can get it from me. Please be sure to use the table that is up in Foundation Connect, and don't use a previous version you might have had from a few years ago, because it has been updated. And then if there are any memoranda of agreement or letters of support that might be relevant, please upload those into the system too. There are spots in Foundation Connect to upload all of those items, and if you're applying through the phone video conference, you'll be emailing all of those documents to me. Oops, hold on. Yep, there we go. I have to aim at the right button to go to the next slide. There we go. Next slide. All right. So applications will be reviewed by a team of external experts, and the majority of that external review committee will be folks who are transgender. Each of our review committee members, whether they're trans or not, will sign a conflict of interest and a confidentiality agreement. So applications are going to get reviewed by a combination of numeric score and qualitative comments. The reviewers will come together for a meeting where applications will be discussed, and out of that discussion, the committee will make funding recommendations, which will be approved by AIDS United's president and CEO. So applying through Foundation Connect, just to give you a little quick version of what this might look like for those of you who have not already used Foundation Connect. So you're going to start by going to the Transgender Leadership Initiative webpage, and that link can be accessed under the web links section of this virtual meeting if you need it. It's also in the RFP. From there, you can click on the Apply Now button. You'll then be asked if you are to go through a series of eligibility questions, which serve as a way to determine whether you're eligible to apply. And once you pass the eligibility quiz, you'll be taken to this page, which is where you're going to log in. If your organization has ever used Foundation Connect for AIDS United to apply for a grant, or if you've used it to submit reports to us, your organization will have an existing account. So be sure to use those login credentials and don't create a new one so that things are linked up to your previous reports and accounts or applications that you have in the system. If you're not sure if you have a login, please email me. And my email I'm going to tell you is sweis@aidsunited.org. That's S as in Shannon, W-Y-S as in Shannon, S as in Shannon @aidsunited.org. You'll also see that email address typed a couple times in upcoming slides. If you know your username but can't remember your password, there's a link below or right next to the login button saying "Can't access your account?" ? Please click on that to reset your password. Super easy. And then you don't need to email me and wait for me to respond, in 15 minutes or, 12 hours if you write me overnight. If your organization has neither applied for a grant through AIDS United nor submitted reports, you'll need to use the system for the first time, click a register, to create a new account. And there's below the blue box with the username and password, there's a yellow box with a green register button, so you'll need to click on that. Before doing so, be sure to bookmark this login page, because this is where you're going to need to come back to log into your account for future submitting of your proposal, to work on it in future iterations, etc. So once you create an account, be sure to save your username and password so you can return to any open applications or hopefully reports, because hopefully you'll be receiving a grant and you'll need to submit a report to us at some point. So you can work on your application as many times as you want. You can log in, you log out, go get information. You can have other people work on it at your organization. Once you're in, you're in. Just be sure to save the information before you log out. So once you save, you can edit everything by logging back into the system through that login page that you will have bookmarked from the previous slide. And then to edit, there is toward the left a little paper and pencil icon. Right next to the link you'll still click on that to edit it, and then the request type. If you've used Foundation Connect before, you may have multiple things showing on this screen. There's a request type column right about in the middle of what you're looking at right there, and the request type for this grant is Trans Leadership Initiative. So if you have other grants, other things in the system, applications in the system, that'll be an easy way to identify this one. So quick tips for Foundation Connect. Please use Chrome or Firefox to access it. Frequently, users do experience issues with Internet Explorer, particularly older versions of Explorer, not loading Foundation Connect, not saving responses. So when in doubt, don't use Internet Explorer, go with Chrome or Firefox. If you're having issues and you're using IE, try another browser first before you write us. See if because sometimes it's just a browser issue, and if you change browsers, it's a super easy fix. As I said, you are able to save your application, so you can work on things in phases, but you do have to enter text into all of the required fields in order to save the application. So if you try to save the application without filling out the required fields, it'll do what websites do, and it will tell you, it will error back at you and tell you you need to go back in and enter things in the required fields before you can save. If you're not sure what you actually want to put in those fields yet, that's fine. If it's a numeric field, just put in one number. It doesn't matter what the number is. And if it's a text field, you can put in the same one number. You can put in the word text. You can just pick one character on your keyboard so that there is something in those fields. And then just make sure to replace them with an actual response before you submit to us. Do hit save often, since there's text in all required fields. And if too much time passes before you've done anything in the system, like hit save or hit cancel, the system will log you out. And because of that, and partly because of that, we do strongly recommend that folks complete your narrative in a Microsoft Word document or some equivalent thereof, and then transfer it into Foundation Connect. Again, sometimes you get logged out of Foundation Connect if you've been idle too long. Sometimes web browsers crash. So if you've put stuff into Foundation Connect and haven't saved, if your web browser crashes, then all of that information you have is gone. And that just is a very sad and frustrating thing, and don't let it happen to you. Word also allows you to monitor your page count. So if you're typing things in, to a Word document, you can keep track of how much you've typed, whereas in Foundation Connect, it's text boxes, and it's harder to tell where you're at for length. But please, when you paste things into Foundation Connect, do paste in as plain text in the system. So any formatting like bullets, bold, italics, anything like that gets converted into HTML tags in Facebook, and that counts against your word count in the system. So go ahead and do paste into plain text unless you've got some extra space to use up, and then you can keep things prettier. So if you're applying via phone and video conference, you need to email me. There's my email address the first time, sweis@aidsunited.org. By May 31st, 2017 at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time to schedule a phone or video conference submission appointment. So you don't have to have the phone or video conference submission by May 31st. You have to write me so we can get it scheduled in the system. So please write me. If you write me on May 31st at 5:15 p.m., you will not be eligible for a phone video conference. You will have to submit through Foundation Connect at that point. So please write me no later than May 31st at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time. But I always encourage folks to work on things early. So if you know by the middle of next week that you're going to want to do a phone video conference, go ahead and drop me a line just so we can sort of get you going on that. So the phone video conferences will last approximately 1 hour. There will be specific time limits set aside for applicants to respond to each question. So make sure that you are prepared to provide the information by the time we have the phone video conference. So because responses will be time limited, you won't really have time to pull up a document, take a look at things you might not have taken a look at, to pull something out of a file cabinet. So you'll really need to make sure that you have all of your responses ready by the time the phone video conference starts. After the phone video conference, what's going to happen is that applicants will be sent a written summary by me of your responses to your questions. So I'll be taking notes during the phone and video conference. Those conferences will also be video and audio recorded, so I can go back to them and look and listen and look through your responses. If I have any questions as I'm typing things up, I will send a summary document to you, and you will have 1 working day. So if you submit on a Friday, you'll need to get back to me by Monday to return the summary. You'll have to acknowledging that it's accurate, that the information in there accurately reflects your submission, and then providing any additional information that you want to. So if there are things you left off that, we hung up in the video conference and I send you a summary document a few days later and you realize that you really should have talked about, points A, B, and C, that's your opportunity to add those things in, as well as to verify that I got everything correct when I was taking notes during your call. So please make sure to schedule a call with us to allow yourself adequate time to review your responses and get them back to us within 1 business day. Right now, I am not scheduling any calls after June 9th because that will give me enough time to type up video conference submission calls to get them to you, because so to give you 1 day, so I will need to get everything back from you by that June 14th at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time deadline, and that's also your deadline to submit all of your required attachments to me. You don't have to submit them all at once. You don't have to submit your attachments at the same time as you send that document back to me with notes from your video conference call. If you need more time, that's fine. But if you want to send them all at once, I certainly am not going to discourage anyone from doing that. So I mentioned earlier there'd be a little mini calendar. So here are some important dates regarding the Transgender Leadership Initiative application process and grants. So again, that super important date, applications are due June 14th at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are not in the Eastern Time zone, please, dial that back and, 1, 2, 3 hours, however many you need to make sure that you get it in there. We do strongly recommend submitting the application early to avoid or address any issues with technology, because if you're working on submitting your application at 4:57 p.m. on June 14th and your web browser crashes or your computer crashes, or you're trying to get back at 4:30 p.m., you're trying to get back to your computer so you can finish up and you hit an unexpected traffic jam, then that is not stress that you need to deal with, especially if it leads to you not submitting your application by that 4:59 p.m. deadline on the 14th. So please plan in advance. We really hate to see situations where folks submit applications late and we're not able to consider them. So don't let that be you. Approved applicants will be notified of funding on July 19th, and final targets along with executed grant agreements will be due on July 26th. Please make sure that the email address you use in Foundation Connect or that you give to us throughout the course of the phone video conference is accurate, because that's the email address that we'll be using to notify you. Applicants who are not funded will receive written notification by August 1st. Please don't call or email us about the status of your application during the review process. I know that it's super stressful to wait to hear from an application you've spent a whole lot of time on and for some funds that you really want and really could use. But do trust me when I say that things around here are very, very busy when we're processing grant applications. It takes a whole lot of time on this end between the processing and the reading and doing lots of internal and external communication. So we really appreciate you not contacting us in the interim between when you submit the application and when we notify you. It makes our lives a lot easier here, which might lead to you finding out sooner whether you have received a grant or not. So question time. We're going to open up to questions. Please go ahead and submit your question in the Q&A box if you have them, if you have any questions, or you can unmute your phones and ask a question that way. If you're going to use your phone to ask a question, please do whatever you can to minimize background noise like barking dogs or children or, sirens from, your open window from someone who's going by. And then please do state your name before asking your question. So the floor is open. What do folks want to know?
Hello, this is Natalie Lachek from Center on Halstead. I just wanted to thank you for the webinar. It was very helpful, and I don't have any questions, but thank you very much.
No problem, Natalie. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yes.
Hey, Shannon, this is Sarah from AIDS United calling from the other room.
Hey, Sarah from the other room.
Just wanted to note, Kathy typed in the Q&A box. She wants to know if the slides will be available, and the slides are going to be available along with the recording on our website.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, I was looking at the wrong Q&A box to see the questions that were in.
No problem.
This is my first time, folks, this is my first time using the system, so I was looking in the Q&A box where you're supposed to type the questions, and I didn't realize the actual questions came through in another box. So,
and we will be emailing that to everyone. So keep an eye on your email in the next day or two.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions folks might have? All right, well, this is not your only opportunity. Feel free at any time to send your questions to me or any concerns that might arise as you're working through your application. I'm here to assist you. I want to hopefully make you as successful as possible in this application process. So please contact me at any time. And again, swees@aidsunited.org. You can also call me at 202-876-2851. I'm more than happy to give you any guidance in whatever way I can. And we really want to thank you for your interest in this initiative. It's really an exciting possibility both for us and for you. And we look really forward to receiving your application. So have a great afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you for joining the webinar.
Okay, thank you.